Test, test, test. Can you hear me, buddy?
Yeah, man, I got you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. No echo today. It's- I'm not used to have a space without having problems in the beginning.
Come on now, you got to get the right attitude, man. You know better than that.
How's
You
your
gotta,
day,
you
man?
gotta, I'm pretty good so far, man. I slept a little bit late, so I just came in from a little walk, getting a little sunshine. It's getting warm out here in the desert, so it's been good. I'm gonna enjoy spending some time with you and the family here, and then head off to the rental property or one of the rental properties and do some work. And then maybe, I don't know, maybe buy some more crypto. Already bought some this morning. It's a perfect day to be buying. Everything's dropping like I thought it would. So some of that SOL that I was sitting on that I converted to cash at high numbers is going to find a new home at low numbers and multiply. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, it's interesting because people kind of expect the markets to drop even more. Like, aren't you scared of that?
No, I mean the thing is, I don't trade or move in and out of a position with the understanding that I'm going to hit it perfect. If I can get within the top 20% ish or so of the movement, like if I sell SOL at 190 and it goes to 210 and then turns around, I think I did pretty good. If it drops to 130 and I'm buying back in the 160s or the 150s, then I think that's a pretty good trade as well. So, I mean, I think you have to let go of this idea of perfection when you're dealing with these things because you're never, I mean, unless you're clairvoyant and have a crystal ball, you're never going to be perfect. You just have to do what you can to multiply assets. And if I can multiply assets double digits just by doing a simple swing trade, again, it's like, do you want to be greedy or do you want to be successful? They're not, these things are mutually exclusive, right? So I'm not trying to be greedy. I just want to multiply and multiply and multiply. And if I do that enough, then I know ultimately my results will show. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the sideways movement we have currently are perfect for your trading, definitely. I mean, that sideways, I think I mentioned it last time, that sideways movement is kind of giving the space the idea of, like the mood is very bad. When you look on X, like all the people are complaining, hey, it's another red day, and they act as if we're back in the bear market, So, Bitcoin's still trading at I think it was 68 last time I checked. So it's actually still crazy, but yeah. So you bought Soul back, right?
Yeah, this morning I spent 500 bucks on Sol and then I spent 500 bucks on Bitcoin as well. And that's just, like I converted like 10 grand out of Solana and it was just sitting in cash. And so all I've done as the market falls is I just sneak back in bit by bit, bit by bit by bit by bit. So like if you look at the move from say like 190 to 160, which is roughly where it was, kind of roughly the trade that I'm operating on, like what's the percent gain if you go the other direction? Well, it's $30 roughly. So, it's going to be close to like a 17, 18% gain just doing that in terms of nominal SOL, right? Like if my goal is to acquire more SOL because I know SOL is ultimately going higher, or at least that's the thesis that I'm operating for. So I can get 17 to 18% gain on my SOL just by paying attention to the market. But I mean, if you're not, I mean, like I hear what you're saying, like with the mood in the market, and we talk about this a lot. And I was on a Spaces yesterday with the um, the guy and Anna, the girl who wrote or who created what is it? Oh shit, Meta Vixens, I think it is. Like I was on that Spaces. I dropped into one with them and Maria, and then I saw they were doing another one yesterday, so I popped in there. And it's like the same types of conversations where they have a community and they're building a community that's very similar to the one that we're building in and around people who are geared more toward thinking long term and understanding how early we are in the cycle. But like there was a lot of frustration on the call because hey, why aren't people buying our stuff? Or hey, Why can't we find more people who are specifically into artwork, because artwork is the first and best utility. A lot of the same conversations that we've had, right? And, at the end of the day, ultimately, it just comes down to vision and where we're at, right? Because the market's going to follow attention. One of the big things that they were chatting about that I thought was interesting was, Polygon versus Base, for example, like these Ethereum level twos, basically. Why is Base not getting attention? Or I'm sorry, why is Base getting all the attention and Polygon not getting any of the attention, right? And there's some frustration there, and why is it this way? Blah blah blah. And I mean, when you look at the differences of launch and the differences of condition, you have to start thinking about vision. You have to start thinking past the moment. So, like, if you're looking past the moment, I mean, the reason Base is doing so well right now in terms of attention and transactions is because it's backed by Coinbase. So, if you have an account with Coinbase, one of the largest exchanges in the world, they have 100 million plus active users signed up on Coinbase, and then they issue challenges and quests. And one of the quests that they issued was to do something and earn Base, right? So immediately 100 million people were invited to do something on Base. Well, that didn't happen for Polygon, right? Like Polygon came out way before all this was even a thing. So at the end of the day, like wondering why Base is more popular than Polygon, it doesn't really matter. You just got to look at where the market is today versus where it's going to be. And ultimately, there'll be another level two. Ultimately, there'll be level threes and level fours, and there'll be more quests, and there'll be larger companies who push attention to those things. And then the tension will shift again. And the tension's just going to keep shifting from thing to thing as the market grows. Again, because we're so young, we're so early, we're so, like in the infancy of this S curve. Like people don't realize how early we are still. So, I mean, when it comes to trading and people being down, or when it comes to looking at new projects dropping or airdrops, or this NFT project that was hot yesterday, but it's not hot, tomorrow or today or whatever, it all just comes down to your timeline. Like, what is your time horizon? Are you here for today or are you here for the future? And if you're smart, you're going to be here for the future because that's where all of the reward exists. I mean, it's fun to get an airdrop and pick up a few $100 or $1,000 or, 1,500, 2,000, 5,000 if you got room stones or whatever, 6,000, 7,000 if you sold at the top. Like it's fun to do all that. But this is a drop in the bucket to what's possible as this market matures. But if you're in that mindset of everything has to happen now, then your emotions are going to be governed by what you're seeing now. And your actions are going to be governed by your emotions. We talk about this a lot in the coaching world. And you're going to do stupid things. And so that's what you see in the market right now. People just doing short-sighted things, high time preference activity versus low time preference activity. And at the end of the day, that's why so many people lose. And that's why, there's such negative sentiment when the market falls and such positive sentiment when the market rises. But, it's like that quote, was it Darren Rothschild said, the best time to block, or he said something like, the best time to buy is when there's blood in the streets, even if it's your own, you know? And so like with Solana at 8 or ETH at 800 or Bitcoin in the teens, there was blood in the streets, and I made myself buy in those times, even though I was a little bit uncertain, right? So now you have an opportunity to do the same thing. There's less blood in the streets because Sol's only down 40, $50 from its high. Bitcoin's down just a little bit, ETH's down a little bit. So you have a little bit of blood in the streets, and now is the time to start buying. Now I wouldn't like put an entire position on, but I'm nibbling, right? Like as it comes down, I'm going to nibble, 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 buy a little bit, buy a little bit, buy a little bit, and look for the trend to turn. And then that's when the money will be made, right? So, I mean, just comes down to, I think, a lot of vision, a lot of, just looking past where we are today and looking to where it's going to be, and then making your decisions based on that. So if you can do that, you'll be all right. Sorry, that was long-winded. How are you doing? What's your position? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I actually couldn't agree more. To be honest, I feel like the reason why the crypto space and like the majority of the guys on X are in that mood is because everyone is waiting for that mysterious altcoin season, and you've definitely been one of the luckier ones, as I know that your biggest bag is Bitcoin and then followed by Solana, I think. And these two have been doing great in the last few months. So yeah, and regarding base, I haven't really looked into that a lot, but I've seen that being mentioned a lot lately with, like the whole Solana congestion, and then they were like, hey, you can trade your meme coins on base as well. And yeah, that's what I saw when it was mentioned. And yeah, I read that it's somehow related to Coinbase. I'm not sure if they actually dropped the coin or if it's like one of the founders. I don't know. Maybe you got more information on that. But yeah, as you mentioned, it all comes down to patience in the end, and I think we'll have definitely a good few months. I think it's the last space before the halving. No, the next one next week. I think the halving is expected on Saturday next week, right? 20th April. And yeah, let's see where we go from there. If there will be another dump, sell the news event, or if we'll go up from there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The halving might happen on Friday, might happen on Saturday. I mean, it just depends on how quickly the blocks come through. We're operating on averages. The average block time is 10 minutes. That's Bitcoin's target block time. So, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like it's I don't know, man. I'm here, I'm here to provide value to people who are here for the long run. That's the whole point of our project, obviously. And I love hearing these conversations start to develop in other communities because it tells me that we're in the right direction. We're going in the right direction, right? You see what happens with the hype and horse shit. You see what happens with the meme coins. You see what happens with all these things. And I mean, coming from the investment world into this world, at least a little bit where I ran my own money and, I ran enough to hurt if I lost. Like at the end of the day, if I'm looking at a coin that's like a level one, let's call Ethereum an L1 and we'll call base a level two, right? So the L2 has to depend on the level one. The L2s are all dependent on level ones, right? And then the L3s will be dependent on the L2s, et cetera, and so on and so forth. So for me, like if I'm thinking long term in where the most value lies, like the value doesn't lie in the L2. The value lies in the L1 because it's the thing that's necessary for the L2 to exist in the first place. It's the difference between buying oil or gas and buying Exxon, right? Like I can buy Exxon, which exists because oil and gas is necessary, or I could just buy the commodity and not have to worry about a management structure that's going to fuck everybody over left and right if they make a bad decision, right? So when it comes to meme coins, like you have meme coins on top of L2s, on top of L1s, like, dude, it's just, I mean, it's fun. Again, like if you like playing in the shitcoin casino and that's your thing, hey, no judgment, do your thing. But for me, I'm not going to waste my time there. I'm just going to buy the asset that is required by the thing that these other people are buying, right? So for me, buying Sol makes a lot more sense than buying some meme coin that rides on Sol. And in terms of total value and in terms of total volume, you're much, much safer because the more people who are involved in a particular project or a particular trade, the less volatility you're going to have. And you can see even with Sol being, in the multiple billions of dollars of total value and transaction volume, even with that, you can have a 25, 30, 40% shift over the span of 3 or 4 weeks. So just imagine how much that can shift on a meme coin that's got like 100 people buying it. It doesn't make any sense to play with that unless your whole goal is to sit and look at charts every single day. So yeah, I prefer to sleep. I prefer to use my time for other things and just buy what the other stuff requires. And then, and just kind of watch and see what happens from there.
But one thing I never actually asked you because I know the stuff that you hold, but why are you actually not into stuff like that you just mentioned, like Matic or ADA or I don't know some other coin from the top 10?
I hold those tokens actually. I bought them back when I was a lot stupider in the market. And I bought them actually when I started buying Bitcoin again. Um, and the thing was like I thought I was smart when I first started buying crypto because I was buying all these things and like I bought Matic for pennies or maybe a few dollars, and it went way up, and I bought ADA for pennies, and then it jumped a few bucks, and all this kind of thing. And then this was prior to the last halving. And I remember it clearly, like, because it was around November, December, and again, I think 2020 when this was going on. And I thought, oh, I'm doing really well, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't really understand what I was buying, right? I didn't really understand that there's nothing that those chains do that these other chains are not already doing. I didn't really understand competitive advantage. And I was just talking, I was just basically talking myself into purchasing these things and taking chances on them. So when, like back, even as far back as like 20, what is it, 15, 16, 17, somewhere around in there, when Ripple was released, like I bought a shit ton of Ripple for, I think like 7 cents or 8 cents per token. And then it ran to something like, I don't know, close to $3 a token before it got, kind of waxed by the SEC and involved in a lawsuit. So again, I thought I was super smart and I made all this money in Ripple. But the truth is, like, I wasn't watching it and I missed the top, so I didn't sell at the top. I still sold for a sizable profit, but I missed out on thousands on that one, right? And so, like, I hold these tokens, but I bought them when they were all pennies or just a few dollars. And I've just been sitting on them. They're kind of like the speculative version of what I hold. And if they do something great, and if not, I'm fine with that too. I don't really care. Because if I lose the money, it's not going to impact my lifestyle. And if I win big, it's not really going to impact my lifestyle. It's just going to make me smile for a day or two, and I'll probably convert it to something like Bitcoin. So I hold Cardano, Polkadot. What else? Oh, shoot. Let me see. I can tell you exactly. Cardano, Polkadot, and I think I hold some. What is this other thing? Oh, I hold Algorand. I bought a lot of that back in the early days when it was super cheap. I bought a lot of Shiba when it was super cheap. I guess it still is super cheap. Um, um, I hold BAT and I hold HBAR, and I'm mining Caspa, and I'm using the Caspa minings to buy Bitcoin. So, I mean, those are pretty much it. And all of these tokens, with the exception of like DOT and ADA, I've already made my money on. So, for example, like Shiba, when I bought Shiba back in the day when it was being pumped really hard by the founding group, and then they were doing all this marketing where they were like, "Hey, we sent half the supply over to Vitalik to burn and blah 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 and this and that and the other thing." And then Vitalik made an announcement where he's like, "Yeah, I got all this Shiba Inu, don't know what to do with it. Think I'm gonna just sell it and give it to charity." And then, of course, there was a rumor that Elon Musk was going to buy into Shiba and all this stuff, right? And people were going crazy. And they just started buying and buying, buying and buying. And I remember I went to Texas with my wife. We went to do Spartan race and have a vacation and all this kind of stuff. So we're hanging out in wine country and I'm watching Shiba like we're driving in the car. And it had this big pump. And I just went ahead and sold the Shiba right then and there, enough of it to pay for the trip. So I think I pulled like 4 grand in off Shiba, which paid for the trip. And so we were happy about that. And I haven't looked at it since because it's already paid me more than I put in, right? So the whole idea for me is like to put in enough to get a position started. And then if that position gives me the ability to exit with what I put in, I'll pull out what I put in and go on to the next thing and just let what's left run. And that way I don't have to worry about it.
That's interesting. I'm actually also a big fan of Polkadot and Algo, but I just read that Hong Kong is actually set to approve a spot Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF by Monday, which is quite interesting, but probably not having a big impact. These kind of things do not have an impact unless it's coming from the United States. So let's see if that does anything. And another thing that was quite important this week is I don't know if you've read it. The SEC started to work again, and they are pretty likely to file a lawsuit against Uniswap. Did you read about that?
I saw a headline. Tell me what's going on. What did you read?
I actually also saw just the headline as well, but what I saw is pretty interesting because the comments and this is like the stupidity of crypto people were like if Uniswap goes down, it doesn't matter, I just go to Radium or Jupiter or something like that, and that's actually pretty interesting because it was similar back then when we had that Ripple lawsuit. People still do not realize that if Uniswap gets some kind of judgment that is bad, that it will affect the whole space and all the decentralized exchanges. So yeah, we have to see about that. But what I read is the post from the Uniswap founder, and he was definitely ready to fight.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, the end of the day, the SEC has been behind the curve, to say the least. And ultimately, this is what we talked about with artwork, right? And you mentioned at the last space where you had the latest AI artist come on board, and you sent her documents to sign, and she's like, "Well, I've never had to sign documents before, blah blah blah." And this is why we sign documents, right? So that if the shit hits the fan, we have some sort of proof and some sort of paperwork around, hey, this is happening, that's happening, and we are covered, right? And this is one of the things that when we're communicating to new people looking at our project that they don't really care about yet and understand, but one of those things that will become extremely important as we go forward. So depending on the documentation that Uniswap has with its user base, depending on its, country code, depending on how it operates in different jurisdictions, depending on how its code is deployed, it may or may not be in jeopardy. And so it could be a good thing that the SEC is going after them, because if Uniswap shows up and says, "Listen, we've got all of our ducks in a row here, and we are, willing to geofence the US, or we're willing to do whatever," then the SEC doesn't really have a case. I don't think Uniswap is based in the US, is it? I can't remember.
Yeah, right.
And so, I mean, what happens is the public suffers, right? Like, it's the people who get hurt when the SEC does this stupid shit, because if you're someone who's good at trading and you're making, you're making a living trading on Uniswap or something similar to that, then at the end of the day, they can take your livelihood by basically geofencing the service off from that particular country. Excuse me. And so, you've seen this before, and I posted this in the group the other day. Like, Chaz was like, "Hey, man, I got all these airdrops I can't get to because, the US is blocked, blah, blah, blah." I had this first experience when I bought into Shaquille O'Neal's project. I forget the name of it. What was it called again? Do you remember?
The NFT project, Astrals.
Yeah, Astrals. So like I was holding some Astrals and then earning, their token, which I think is called Galaxy or something like that. And because I'm in the US, like I couldn't claim the rewards, right? And so then, of course, airdrop season kicks off, and it's the same thing. Like, well, if you're in the US, you can't get this, you can't get that. So what's the workaround? Well, the workaround is a VPN. And so, I posted in the group like the one that worked for me. And, I think I paid like $8 for a month of access to ExpressVPN, just long enough to get the drops. And I ended up just on the first day getting like $200 in crypto, or in whatever I forget what token it was. Stark. It was Starknet. So I got Starknet's token, converted it to like $200 in Ethereum, and then moved it into one of my ETH wallets using ExpressVPN. So the SEC can do whatever the SEC wants, but I mean, at the end of the day, if savvy people are involved in the marketplace, which is really all it is right now, especially on the large exchanges, like they're just going to do things like that. They're going to set up even more complex personalized VPNs. They're going to find a way to get around it. It just hurts the average person, because the average person is not savvy enough to do that. The average person isn't going to take the time to figure it out. And so it's just one more way that the government screws the average person. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, definitely. And what I wanted to add to the thing that you just mentioned about the artist that we are working with together, when you said that she had to sign a contract and she was actually kind of confused and was like, "Hey, I never had to sign a contract here in Web3." Which what is pretty funny is that last week I was sitting on my couch and I think I sent you the screenshot of Art of Mob, who actually made like a post saying like, "Hey, the mob is back," and I also mentioned that it seems like as the profile picture and the biography was changed, it seems like it is some kind of core member. Maybe it's even Basel himself who wrote that, who tweeted that, and my girlfriend was sitting next to me and she was like, "Aren't you worried that he wants to like reclaim the art or something?" And then I just went ahead and opened the contract, the licensing contract that we have with Farts, and I said like, "No, I'm not worried at all. It's our art. We have it licensed and everything." And yeah, that was actually pretty funny because we should actually go ahead and go to OpenSea and like try to get in touch with them because I saw that the Art of Mob account is actually having the OpenSea link to the old Art of Mob collection in its biography, and we should definitely try to get that off of OpenSea.
Yeah, it links to the ladies, doesn't it? If I remember correctly. But I already reached out to them. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. And they're just asking for the collections right now. So I'll get that information over to them, and of course, send them our documentation. But yeah, I mean, for anyone listening, like the licensing agreements that we signed with the artists guarantee us exclusive rights to the arts, meaning everyone else is excluded from use, and that includes the exchanges. So, like the exchanges can't even list or sell art unless they have our permission. So, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a big deal. I mean, I know that other people have had to go through similar situations, but and other people have had stuff pulled. There's also sorts of fraud in the marketplace. But I think the exchanges, for the most part, have been, at least from what I've seen, they've been willing to work with people who are able to actually provide documentation. So I'm not worried about that at all. And at the end of the day, I don't think ETH has a burn mechanism. So even that artwork's going to exist somewhere. But if it can't be listed, then it's no big deal. And I'll keep everybody posted on the progress. But I don't think it's going to be an issue. But we'll see. We'll go from there.
Yeah, he actually changed it to the mail collection on OpenSea. And then you went ahead and reposted some shitcoins. But yeah, as you mentioned, like it's not going to be a problem for us, but I feel like we should definitely try to, I don't want that art still running under Art of Mob on OpenSea.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna basically ask that both of them be pulled at the same time. And so I'm with you. Like, this was something that it takes a long time to do in terms of getting the right person, getting in contact with the right person. So I went ahead and started the process earlier. And, I'll just get it over there and we'll keep everybody posted. But yeah, we'll get it pulled from every single exchange. In any exchange worth its salt, we'll pull it because I mean, nobody wants to be involved in some sort of legal mumbo jumbo. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's kind of interesting, and it also gives us an opportunity to kind of lead in the marketplace. There's so many people who've been fucked over different ways, left and right, by this person, that person. But at the end of the day, like, what's your brand equity when you screw people over? If at the end of the day your project, and I use that term very, very loosely, especially on Soul NFTs, if your project has no track record of success, if your founders have no track record of success, if your people have no track record of actually following through on what it is that they're doing, you can easily demonstrate a lack of will to create, to communicate, to move forward. I mean, these are the type of people who deserve to be literally crucified publicly. And this guy Basil, who originally started Art of Mob, shot his mouth off a lot about what they were going to do and this and that and the other thing. But at the end of the day, the only reason someone like him could come back would be if the community accepted it. And so, on some level, we have to lead people in standing up for themselves, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen people, like, come back into the marketplace after a huge investment. Blackout was one of these, Survivors was one of these. Blackout got $1 million to develop basically a file sharing app. They show up one day and they're like, "Oh, we're sorry, we ran out of money." thanks for playing, you know. And then I forget the other one that was most recent, but there was a big artwork based project that just the guy shows up, or the girl or whoever it was shows up, and they're like, "Oh, we're sorry, we're just not going to do this anymore. Thanks for playing." And it was interesting because the developer for Dandies got on Twitter and like ate this person alive. They're like, "This is total horseshit. Like people have to stop accepting this from people. At the end of the day, if you make a commitment, you're responsible to keep your word and this and that and the other thing, right?" And, he's absolutely right. And so, on some level, the community of buyers and sellers, the community of NFT Web3, we would have to rise up and stop accepting this horseshit. And there's like this, it's funny when you go into the NFT world, everybody wants to post, like bright, shiny, happy things. And yeah, hey, I'm all for that. Let's all be positive. Let's all focus on what we can do, not what we can't do. Let's focus on advancing our cause. Let's focus on moving forward. But by the same token, we can't have a world where everything you do is okay, right? That's a world with no morality, no laws. That's a world where people just literally fall apart and there is literally no community. So when I pop on Twitter or Discord or whatever, and I see all the smiley faces and the happy gifs, and underneath all that, that there's a 98% failure rate, a massive group of people lying to people, a massive group of people defrauding other people, saying one thing, doing something else. On some level, the community has to be like, listen, enough is enough. I'm not going to accept the excuses anymore. You pitched me an idea, you made promises, you did this, you did that. It's on you to actually produce those things. And again, this comes back to anonymity in the marketplace, right? Like if I'm running an actual business in the world, and and I'm calling these businesses because that's kind of what they are. They're basically doing, like IPOs or ICOs. They're trying to raise funds to go and do something, which is what a public business would do, or a private business on a smaller scale. And so you can't really go to the marketplace with anonymity and irresponsibility, ask for money, and then show up next day and say, "Oh, well, I'm sorry," and drive off in your Lambo and say, "Thanks for playing." Right. And then have people say, "Oh, that was fine. That's okay." I've seen this a bunch, right? Like with a bunch of different people and a bunch of different projects. Like Seven Deadly Sins, for example, right? Like they were going to do this thing, and then they stopped doing that thing, and then this other thing that was like a trait swapper, right? And then they were going to do this other thing on top of that, right? And then the trait swapper gets dropped, and then that whole collection goes to basically zero. It's just one thing after the next, rather than developing an idea fully. And I'm looking for, when I'm talking to other founders, like one of the things that was really interesting about the MetaVixens leadership is they're of the same mind. It's like, listen, if you're going to do a thing, you need to do it very, very well. And this is why I'm very cautious about taking on a meme coin or buying into another project, or, jumping onto the next NFT thing, because if it's not mine, and like I know my commitment level, I know your commitment level, I know what we've brought to market, I know the value that we bring. If it's not mine and I can't go into someone else's world and figure out who they are, figure out what their value system is, then I'm not going to put any money there, none whatsoever. And I don't even really want to work with those people, because at the end of the day, there's no accountability and no responsibility, right? So I'm just looking for a track record of success and accountability on everything that I'm doing. If someone's not willing to show up, if someone's not willing to tell me who they are, if someone's not willing to jump on a call with me, then you know what? I'm not going to claim we're in some sort of partnership, because we're not. It's just like it's window dressing, it's symbolism over substance. And on some level, the market has to realize this and just start getting smarter and demanding more from its people. And that's on us. That's on each and every single one of us. So I'm very careful about what I share, what I trade. I'm very careful about who I support, because I really only want to support people who are doing what we're doing, which is showing up. Hey, we're going to do this thing, and we're going to do it for a long time, and we're going to give it our level best, and we're going to deliver. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, maybe one last thing to the Art of Mob thing. I saw that the Art of Mob account actually blocked our Goodfellas account, so that definitely made me cry. But he seems to be aware of what we do. And regarding the other thing, yeah, I mean, I saw statistics that said that analyzed all the pre-sales that have been going on in the last couple of weeks, and it actually said that like 95%, I think, were fraudulent, and like do not exist like after a couple of days after the launch. If they launch, most of them don't even launch, and yeah, it's crazy because people keep looking at the, I don't know, 4 to 5 projects who do like 100x in a couple of days, and it's shitcoin casino. So yeah, I still hope that this will end someday.
Well, it has to. I mean, because people will ultimately get smarter, but it's just a matter of learning curve. And this is why we have such a great opportunity right now, right? For those of you guys on the call who haven't been to the website in a long time, a couple weeks ago, I updated the homepage to kind of spell out exactly what we're doing and how our collections work. And this weekend, I'm going to be putting information together to go ahead and start onboarding the Soul Rockers officially. I'm going to jump into their Discord and make an announcement and send them to a page, explain what we're doing. One of the things that I said on the last call about, making sure that we do this well because we need to make sure there's a decent explanation and people have to have more of an understanding is because we really want to sift and sort the market. So over time, as new people come in, we need to be that soft place people can land and come and get information. I see April in here. Like April has asked me a lot of questions privately, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a project when I was new and I was asking questions, asking questions, asking questions, not getting any responses. Founders were basically ignoring me, people telling me basically, hey, just buy this, just buy that. But what I was looking for was some actual actionable information. And so, like, April's been a classic example. And, I hope you don't mind that I'm just sharing this, but she's just been asking questions like, hey, how does this work? How does that work? What do I need to do to be involved with this? And I'm just responding like, hey, you know what? This is what we're doing. This is how it works. Take a look at this, take a look at that, and then get the information before you make any decisions, right? Like, 'cause I'm not here to just take somebody's money and then just run off into the sunset. And at the end of the day, that's what we need more of. So as more and more people come into the market due to NFTs going mainstream, like we need to have and we need to be, this is one of the things that you and I have talked about, Alex, like being that place where people can go for information. And on the website, there's going to be a section where we basically talk to people about how they can onboard themselves in a smart way and give some trading tips, give some buying tips, give people what to look for. And aside from that, like thinking bigger, one of the things that's been on my heart recently is just reaching out to the major exchanges and saying, listen, you know, we see the problems that you have in the marketplace because, we've been in the marketplace as well. And one of the things that we want to make sure that we do is give people who've been screwed, rugged, stolen from an option, right? And so if we can partner with the exchanges that all of this stuff lives on and have them start referring people to us, then that's going to be an even bigger goal of mine in the future. So as we continue to delist stolen artwork, the flip side of that is if we can get it delisted, maybe we can create ownership of it and find the artists who created it and negotiate a deal with them directly, which is what we had to do for the assets that we own right now. Because so many of these founders are so selfish and so short-sighted. Like they'll engage an artist, engage a creator, and they'll say, listen, we're going to give you X percentage of mint funds or what have you. Like in the case of the Art of Mob, the artwork was done for free. And then there was going to be this percentage of mint going back to the artist. Well, what they did was they changed it to a free mint. And, any percentage of zero is zero. So the artist got fucked, never got paid. And so, of course, the founder wants to hold on to the assets, assuming that they understand that they could be assets at some point in the future. But the artist has never been compensated. So we have this whole idea here where the artist has now been screwed. Now what can you do? Well, because there was no actual agreement with the quote unquote founder, the artist still owns the rights to the artwork. So one of our, tactics is to go directly to the artist. So if there's any collections out there in the world that have been rugged and you know who the artist was, the whole thing that you guys can help us with if you're out there in the marketplace looking around is put us in contact with the creator. Because 9 times out of 10, there is no agreement and we can make an agreement, get control of that artwork and then have the stolen artwork delisted. And so when it comes to, what needs to happen, the documentation with the artist, the documentation with what's actually legally being granted, whether it's licensing or whether it's use rights or whether it's work for hire. These are the things that the artists don't really understand and have been screwed on many, many times. And these are some of the conversations that we have to have behind the scenes so that we can make sure that the artists understand they're protected. And it's not an easy thing, but that's what makes the thing cool, right? If it was easy, everyone would do it. If you got a call back every time you reached out, everyone would do it. But the fact that it's difficult and requires people skills and requires consistency and requires dedication, very few people will do it. But as we build reputation, that can be our reputation. And that's really where, our focus needs to be, on the communication for artists. And then in terms of helping people onboard and understand what's happening, that needs to be the reputation that we have to the public. And ultimately, as we start advertising, like we haven't really even started advertising, but paid ads that lead people to places where they can learn and find out more, and building traditional funnels to get people in front of the information that they're actually looking for. I mean, that's ultimately where I see real growth happening. Because if someone's bribing me to, promote their shit on Twitter, if someone's having to bribe me to promote their shit in Discord or whatever the thing is, what that tells me is that people are really not bought in. And if people are really not bought in, once the incentive ends, so does the promotion. And this is why hype goes in cycles. You have a cycle where people are paid to do a thing or incentivized to do a thing, and you see it every time there's a big drop. The thing goes through the roof in terms of attention. People get sucked in for FOMO, and then they get dumped on at the top by the people who understood when the hype was going to subside, and they're left holding these empty, worthless, negative bags, right? And so one of the things that we could start challenging people to do, rather than thinking in terms of FOMO, is thinking in terms of JOMO. Like, there should be a joy of missing out on some of this stupid shit that's going on in the marketplace. Like, literally JOMO. Like, I am so happy that I didn't get sucked into the last piece of shit drop or the last collection of nothing, built on nothing, founded by nothing, by people with no track record of success. And that's where I take my joy. And so I'm going to take my joy in finding a project that actually cares about its people and wants to continue to grow it. So I don't know. That's just, man, super long winded today, but that's kind of where my heart is.
Yeah, well, you actually said so many things that I wanted to comment on, so I probably have to take notes. First of all, yeah, you mentioned April. Of course, we definitely need more people like her. You like asking questions and coming in. But the problem is that the majority is still, like jumping into Discords and seeking for the next opportunity to have some kind of free mint and make like 1 or 2 X's on your investment and then leave again. That's definitely still a big problem of the NFT world. But another thing you mentioned is exchanges, and I don't know if you've checked it, but when you look into our DMs, you can see that we actually got a message from some Max C official who wanted to list our token AU, and that's actually pretty funny because it shows that getting listed on exchanges is so easy, and people still think that when shitcoin X is going to is on an exchange, it must be legit, but it's not very hard to get listed on exchanges. So people should definitely be aware of that.
Well, for sure, but it's difficult to get listed on quality exchanges, and I think that, when you look at track records, like if an exchange has a good reputation, they're going to want to know who the team is. They're going to want to know the plan. They're going to want to know the tokenomics. They're going to want to know all the things, and you're going to need to have a prospectus that explains all that to them. We kind of looked at this before, but yeah, I mean, in terms of recruitment and putting stuff on a particular exchange, you have to realize incentive runs the world, right? And so just like hype is the result of incentivizing people to do bad things because they can get something out of it. Like same thing with exchanges and people reaching out. These people are incentivized to bring more and more junk onto their exchanges because they take a transaction fee every time it trades, right? So what is the incentive is really what you have to ask yourself. And I think Charlie Munger said it best. Warren Buffett's business partner says, like, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcomes. And so right now the incentive is, if I'm fast, if I'm early, if I'm in the now, I might possibly be able to get a big payday, right? And I use big payday loosely, like that means different things to different people. You know, like I see people. There was the most recent drop on Magic Eden where people were buying it for 0.69, 0.069, I think it was, so like $7 or $8, whatever it was. And then if you pulled up the piece and you looked at the transaction history, it was a purchase for 0.069 and then an immediate sell for 0.05, right? So an immediate loss of 0.02, right? And then whoever bought it for 0.05 was then listing it for 0.09 or 0.1. And the difference in those prices is like $4, $5. And so someone who thinks that they won because they made $5 on a trade, like this tells you the caliber of person that you're dealing with in terms of monetary savvy. And so, you know, on one of the first spaces that I was having with another group, they invited me to speak, and I was like, listen, you know, I'm not looking for people who are willing to flip my assets for a hamburger. You know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm looking for people who want to be here for the long term and build something great. And sifting and sorting through that group of people, just like the frustrations that I heard on the MetaVixens call yesterday, is it's maddening on some level, right? Because you continue to put good things into the world, good things into the world, good vibes into the world. And what the market sends you back is someone who's kind of on the fence or maybe just wants to flip. And then you have to run them through a few gates to figure out who they really are. And that's natural and normal. But at the end of the day, right, when someone is flipping an NFT for $3 or $4 for a hamburger, not even making their money back on transaction fees or selling for a loss immediately after mint, this is completely unsustainable. So those people will ultimately weed themselves out because they don't have the funds to be playing in the game to begin with. And they really shouldn't be risking it. And they really shouldn't be risking it on projects that have no vision, no roadmap, you know, no desire to move or to grow or to learn or to, you know, expand in any way, shape, or form, or to have a real world application. Like they just should not do that. But again, because the market has no barrier to entry, and this is the biggest problem with like the low cost chains, is there's no barrier to entry. The fees are very slight, and so anyone and everyone can come into the market. Okay, well, that brings in anyone and everyone. And now you're left as a founder with the task of, okay, how do I market to find the people who align with my value system? And that's really the alpha. That is the alpha for the next few years. How do I find people who align with my value system and want to grow with me? Right? It's as simple as that. And that's where the market's going to go. And so when I was on the MetaVixens call, I was like, well, I'm thinking to myself as I'm kind of touring Twitter. I didn't get on Twitter until like a year ago. Like I never really got on Twitter. And so, I'm just kind of tooling around, looking around, thinking to myself, it can't, like, crypto Twitter really can't be this ignorant. Like, it just can't be. I think this can't be everyone. And so when I jumped on the MetaVixens call, I was like smiling to myself because they were saying the exact same thing. So these types of people are out there and they're actively seeking the same type of audiences and they're actively seeking the same type of participants. But it's going to take time to sift through the noise. And when the noise is incentivized to be big, when you're getting rewards for hyping shit you really don't care about, it's going to take time to punch through. But again, ultimately, those people bankrupt themselves by making bad decisions and ultimately have to leave the marketplace. So we're just playing this game where now is not as important as tomorrow. What is not as important as what could be. So we're always focused on what could be.
Yeah, so let's jump into the good fellas now. And you talked about alpha. I think what we can tell people is that we received the final art from our second artist incubator artist, and we haven't really spoken about it. I sent you the pieces, and in my opinion, they are wonderful. I mean, I love that they are themed and that you can see that they belong together. Yeah, haven't really heard your opinion on that.
Yeah, I actually was looking at them really closely last night. It's super cool, man. They're female form, and there's a theme. I guess we could go ahead and just say like the theme is like veils and crowns, and it's like this super beautiful female form. And I think people are really going to like it. The artist is amazing, and the work is more realistic, a little bit darker than I would say relative to something like Maria's artwork. But the style is, something that I have an affinity towards. So I'm absolutely in love with it. I think the pieces are going to be fantastic. And then, of course, in addition to that, we've got the bonus mints coming out next week, which are going to put us back into the 21s, like the major 21s, and then a secondary bonus that's in process right now. And then, of course, the next batch mint. So we got to pick some dates and get that out to you guys with the halving coming up at the end of next week. It'll most likely have the next batch mint toward the end of the month. And in terms of market sentiment, I just want to say this, like anyone who is like feeling down or upset because of what's happening today or what's happening, right now, you got to start thinking past that moment, you know, and start thinking into what you really want to create. And this is true of all parts of life, not just in your investing world or not just in the NFT world. It's like, what do you really want to create? Where are you going? And what behaviors can you execute to get there? So just remember that your emotional state's going to drive your action. And if you're sucked into today, your emotional state might drive you to make bad decisions. So if you're looking at the vision you want to create, one of the things that we focus on in the real world is this saying of remember your future. So forget the now and forget yesterday, remember your future. And we say remember your future because it's one you've designed, right? And so just like building this out, we have a future we've designed and that's what we're looking toward. And don't get sucked into the moment. If anything, it's best to disassociate yourself from the now and start thinking about where it's going because the bigger trends are easier to see. But yeah, lots on the go, lots of contract work, lots of artists on the go, more fresh stuff, more batch mints. We owe you guys the Solana version of your boss. We also owe you guys the Solana version of your boss with a face. So we're going to be engaging artists to do some really cool face work for us. And I think Alex just finished or got very close to finishing the metadata for the ordinal bosses, so that the names that you chose or the locations that you chose will be live there shortly. You got a few more days, obviously, to get that in. And then after that, if you wanted to update that, it's going to cost AU. So that's going to be one of the uses from AU, and also one of the ways we're going to play this what boss owns what area game, because we're going to create this really cool sort of way of bidding on areas, like have bidding wars. So if there's a particular area that you want, go ahead and claim it. If there's a particular name you want, go ahead and claim it, create a ticket, and Alex and I will jump in there and get it taken care of. But yeah, after that, we'll have the bidding wars. And so earning AU, being able to defend your territory is going to be kind of a fun little game that we're going to have going.
Yeah, man, definitely looking forward to the next mint on Wednesday. I think we should be able to do it. It looks like Solana is not quite yet back to normal, but seems like transactions go through. I think there should be another update on April 15, if I'm right. And yeah, we should definitely be good to go for the mint on Wednesday. One last thing that you mentioned in the Discord, we haven't even spoken about it, so I'm not sure if you can talk about it, but you mentioned that you have some kind of meeting about tokenization with some company.
Oh yeah, I guess I can talk a little bit about that. So as I said in a previous call, one of my initial contacts from the first business I ever built back in the web development days is a music licensing company here in Phoenix, Arizona, and they have tens of thousands of tracks. They've been in business for quite a few years here, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but Phoenix was actually a hotbed for early music back in the day. Um, Lots of big acts came through here, lots of rock, lots of country, and now it's just, it's not as big as it was then, but a lot of those artists are still here, and they have a lot of work that they did back in the day that was unlicensed and not published. And so this company has gone around basically doing what we do. They pick up unlicensed artwork. They do music and placements inside radio, television, and film. So pretty much every television show you've ever seen Every film you've ever seen, they've got stuff in it. And this just comes down to the fact that if you wanted to license, for example, like an AC/DC song, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars versus licensing something that sounds like an AC/DC song. That's kind of their niche. You can get it for much, much less. So music directors in all of the film studios look for licensing and publishing companies to create music for them. And so one of the conversations that we had around Soul Rockers is, okay, how can we start talking about tokenization in the marketplace? And certainly one way of doing that is tokenizing music. And so I'm going to meet with these guys next Wednesday at 2 down at their offices, and we're going to talk about what it might look like to tokenize some of their tracks and assign those tracks to NFTs, which in our case, we could just basically use the Soul Rockers art, which is super cool. I don't know if you guys have taken a look at it, but definitely take a look at it. It's amazing. And that opens the door for a lot of things. Like the artist that did the Soul Rockers art is a guy out of Europe, and artwork is super detailed, but it also opens the door for this is all like 80s, 90s, like hairband style art, like rock and roll type art. But it opens the door for the same style in rap, the same style in country, the same style in pretty much any genre of music. All of these different collections could exist and be tied to music, tied to tracks. And then, of course, you as an owner of that NFT could enjoy the track, trade it with other people, sell it off if you wanted to. And then there's also ways to set up licensing within licensing. So this thing has so many layers, man. And but before we dive too deep in that, it's just having the conversations, and it's like it's learning to do what we do very, very well and focusing on that. Elon posted a great video of Steve Jobs on his timeline, and he was talking about how Apple made their big mistake when he left. And the mistake was that the idea, or that just having the idea is 90% of the work. And then he goes into this explanation about why that's total horseshit. Like the idea, everybody has an idea. The question is, can you execute it extremely well? And this is the part where the NFT Web3 market is at right now. It's like there's tons and tons of ideas executed extremely poorly. And what Jobs was saying is there's a tremendous amount of craftsmanship and development that goes into idea to make it something that's worthwhile to the end user. And this is kind of where I see Goodfellows being of benefit to the major markets. It's like everything that we do, we want to do top shelf, whether it's the mint experience or just having good conversations or giving you guys usable information. Like that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I actually saw the video that you reposted. It was great. So to conclude, if any of you guys still has to name your boss, just let us know. Maybe open a ticket, and I'll get it into the metadata. And yeah, we are looking forward to the mint on Wednesday. We hope to have you all on board there. If you got your 7 pieces and you haven't submitted your wallet yet, do it until Monday or Tuesday. We'll definitely take you into the list. And yeah, I think that's it for today. Do you have anything else?
No, man, I probably talked way too much.
No, it was totally fine. So yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Yeah, let's hope we can get some more information on the tokenization next week when you had the meeting. And yeah, looking forward to Wednesday. Hope to see you guys around. And this was it for today. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.